song by Jana Stanfield. Thank you, Jana. When I first heard that song, I thought, wow, if I'd only gotten to it first, because it says exactly what I meant. And at that time, I was very, very young. And it was kind of like I wanted to tell my mother, look, Ma, I'm not lost, because she thought I was lost. Yeah, I'm just exploring. And oh, the life of exploration I have led since that time. And all of the wonderful epiphanies it has brought me to, and all of the changes that have happened externally, for sure, because that's how the world works, but all of the change that has happened internally for me. And the first thing that it took, because I was leaving a fundamentalist religion that had held me in its grip from birth. And so the thing that I had to employ, first of all, was bravery. I had to have the courage to be curious. I had been taught that to ask the question was sinful itself. And there was a part of me that was quietly questioning, how can asking a question be sinful if God gave me a brain and this question is coming to me? It didn't make a lot of sense, and yet it still took a lot of bravery. It takes bravery for us to stand in the I do not know. 3 weeks ago, we talked about the power of yes, of saying yes to our lives, of saying yes to opportunity, yes to possibility, to moving forward, to opening our lives to bigger and bigger avenues. We talked the following week about the power of no, saying no. And that's about boundaries. That's about saying, no, that's for you, it's not for me. That's about saying, no, that's enough. That's about saying, no, that's a complete sentence, and I don't have to explain to you why. And then last week we talked about maybe, that liminal space where anything could happen. There might be a yes, there might be a no, but since we don't know yet whether it's a yes or a no, we have to hang out in that maybe, which is a beautiful place that the Buddhists call beginner's mind. You don't have your mind made up yet, therefore you are open to information. Now, how many of you, when you watched the news last night, were open to new information versus how many of you were looking for validation of what you already believe and already know about all those folks and what they're doing? Curiosity is the way that we can stay open. Curiosity, Anne Lamott, I quoted her last week. She basically said that doubt is not the opposite of faith. Certainty is the opposite of faith. If you already know, what do you got to have faith in? And if you already know, what room is there to learn anything else? If you already know, where is the opening that new information or new insights can get into? If you already know, that's a shut door in many ways. So the question is, if we're going to employ curiosity as a spiritual tool, how do we remain uncertain? Because it is uncomfortable. That's why we don't want to be uncertain, because it's very uncomfortable. Anything could happen. And if you're like me, the anything that could happen doesn't usually go, I could go to Disney World. The anything that could happen is, this could all go to hell in a handbasket and I'll never be able to climb out. But truly, if anything could happen, it's just as likely to be Disney World or a trip to the moon as it is a trip to the garbage dump. Why do our minds go there? How to remain uncertain, to live in the question. It takes bravery to live in the question, but it also is the most alive space you will ever live. When your mind is made up, there's a certain deadness there. But when your mind isn't made up, there is an aliveness. There's a possibility in every moment. And guess what? If your mind isn't made up, you can't live in the past or the future. You got to pay attention right now. Right now, because that's the only place that the information or the insight is going to come from. And I love this concept of curiosity. In the Jewish religion, there's a saying that whenever there are 3 Jews in a room, they should be discussing Torah. I love that. I love that. Not because you should be discussing your Bible, because that's the more religious thing to do. The idea behind it is that the Torah is not a dead book. It's worthy of continual discussion. The Christian Bible and the way we use it in fundamentalism is that it's dead. We already know what it says. We already know what it means. There's no sense in discussing it unless we're just quoting it to somebody else to prove a point that we already made. Right? But how do you keep it alive? How do you keep it alive? I love that. The Torah was the most important 5 books in the Jewish religion. But then they have this entire gigantic commentary that rabbis over hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years have commented, well, it might mean this and it might mean this, and I think it means this, and I think when it's this, it could apply to this, and it could apply to that, and it could apply to the other thing. Have you ever heard anything like that in the Christian religion? It's like, nope, here's what it means. Shut up. Don't ask any more questions, or that's what I got from the religion of my childhood. Shut up, don't ask any more questions. You are in the danger zone. You can go to hell right now just for asking the question. And so asking the question is brave. And asking the question is alive. It is in the moment. It is of the moment. Asking the question is when all possibilities exist. So the song says, I'm not lost, I'm exploring. I may look lost because I don't know where I'm going. But I'm exploring, and so many of us carry around an old map, and we think somehow we're walking on a map. We're not walking on a map, we're walking on a territory, right? Open your eyes to the actual territory, because the map may be true or the map may be not. The map may be a very old map that you made when you were a kid and it doesn't apply anymore. The map may be one that someone else gave you that's a great map of the territory they live in, but has nothing to do with the territory you're exploring right now. It may be a perfectly good map of the territory that you're in, but the part where it says you are here may be wrong. Maybe you're over here, but you're trying to follow directions as if you're here. We got to pay attention to the territory. And what we have to do to get off our map and into our territory is out of our comfort zone and into our challenge zone. Out of the place where everything feels comfortable and safe and secure. Into the place where nothing feels secure, but where, if we believe that there is one presence and one power in the universe, we know we are safe. We're not safe from things happening that we don't want to happen. But we are safe because we're already home. We're already there. We are eternal souls and we cannot be threatened. The Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. If it's not real, it doesn't exist. If it's real, you are safe in it. It may not look like the way your human brain made it up, that you wanted it to look. But if it's real, it is safe. So curiosity is about keeping your heart open. When we talked about no, we talked about the ability to say no to another or even to yourself without having to close your heart to do it. Curiosity is about keeping the heart open all the time, and that is hard work, y'all. It really does feel good to just shut it down for the night. Whew! Thank God I don't have to keep my heart open anymore. I can just watch this TV show. I can just watch the sports team and scream at the other guys and watch the news before I go to bed and tell everybody how wrong they are and go to bed. And then the next morning I can open my heart again when I see my friends. That's kind of how we live. No judgment there. It's part of being human. But if you could keep your heart open one more percentage point of the time, imagine how that might transform your life. So curiosity on the spiritual path. Curiosity to learn. Curiosity means I haven't decided that I already know. Therefore, I'm open. What have you got to teach? What have they got to teach? What have you got to teach? Curiosity means I never go, okay, I'll study anything but that. That's what it may mean for you. Curiosity to learn, that's the what. What's happening here? And then there's interest. When we become curious, we are interested. And we're interested in, so how does this work? We're paying attention to not just what it is, but wait a minute, how do I apply that? Okay, great, insight. Woo! What happens when you have an insight? Not a single thing until you start doing something differently. And so, how do I apply what I have learned from my curiosity? How? And then we come to the really hard part. I want the result right now. I want to know the ending to this story, because then I don't have to be uncomfortable anymore. As soon as I know the ending, I can just rearrange everything, knowing that that's the ending, and even if it's a really hard one, I can make my plan, and I can get there. I know I can because I'm strong. But when someone says, you have no idea what the ending is going to be, or if it's going to end, you have to just stay in the trust and the uncertainty. You have to have patience. Not my favorite word. Not my favorite word. So we have to be on the spiritual path. That's what it requires. We have to have the curiosity to learn. We have to have the interest to apply it, what we've learned. And then we have to have the patience to see, well, I applied it. It didn't work. Last night, I prayed for Donald Trump. And this morning, I feel exactly the same about him as I did last night. Nothing changed. We have to have patience. If we're doing something different, if we're praying for somebody we disagree with, or even praying for somebody we do agree with, if we're praying, that we're not on, God's not on our time. Oh, okay, thank you. You prayed. Let's fix that right now. It's not the way it works. Things do unfold in time, and they don't, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing of physics of whether time really exists or whether it does not. In this human world, things unfold in time. In God's world, there is no time. If it's a done deal, it's a done deal. And then we have to be down here patient, watching it unroll and unfold and go, okay, but when am I going to see the done deal? That's our job. The other thing we have to be really curious about on the spiritual path is ourselves. To be curious about the self, to practice self-awareness. And that means when you're saying what you're saying and you're doing what you're doing, occasionally go, why did I say that? Why would I do that? And that applies to something that's unusual that you did or something that you do every day. Why am I still doing this? Why am I doing this? Maybe there's a good reason why. Maybe you forgot long ago why you're doing it and you're just doing it out of habit. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe you are perpetuating something that's harming you in your life and you don't even see it because you never thought to question it. Apply your curiosity, not to beat yourself up ever, but to go, oh, you know, here's this thing that I never believed was true about me. And I'm not accepting other people's opinions about that, but when 6 or 8 or 12 people all treat me the same way, not all at once, but again and again and again, I might look at what the common denominator is. What energy am I putting out there that's inviting this response? And so I have to ask myself the question first. I don't like being here, and here I am again. If I say I don't like being here, and I work at not being here, and I'm still here, is there something that I need to know that I don't know? Can I be open to it? My friend David Roth, who spends a lot of time, I mean literally a lot of his time, volunteering to help fledgling songwriters. He's an amazing songwriter, and he has a foundation, and he volunteers to help fledgling songwriters. And he will help you if you put 2 words to 1 note and applaud you and bring you along. But he will also say to you, if you want to know if your song is good, yes, love it in yourself. You have to love your song. You have every right to love your song. And if you want to know if it's going to play in the world, you have to listen to the world, because they will tell you. You can say, this is the best song, this is the best song, this is the best song, this is the best song. And if you keep getting back, nah, then you have a question to ask yourself. Is it? How firmly do I believe this? Am I being tested to see how much I believe this? Am I going to still keep doing the same thing even though it's not working? Or am I going to go, is there something that could be improved? Is there something here that I don't see? Is there a way that I could ask the question of somebody that I trust? Okay, I really think this is a good song, but I keep hearing that it's not quite there. Can you tell me something about that? Doesn't mean I have to believe what they say, but I could listen. Ram Dass says, and this is beautiful, and Eric Butterworth says too, every wise person says, I can't tell you anything. If it's not already in your heart, you won't hear it, right? So it's actually safe to have people tell you things, because if it's not in your heart, you won't hear it. And if it rings in there, it's like, oh, that was something that part of me already knew that maybe I wasn't letting the rest of me in on. So self-awareness is hard. You have to keep asking the question. I would say that is my number one daily, momently, hourly task on the spiritual path, which wears me out sometimes, and I get sick of it, is to continue asking, how am I contributing to that? What does this mean for me? What am I here to learn? Not, why did this happen? But what can I learn? It happened. What can I learn from this? What's going on here? What's in it from me? Not just what's in it for me. What's in it from me? That's self-awareness. And if you are lucky enough to have a few spiritual friends on the path who will tell you the truth, their truth, then you are lucky indeed. Choose them wisely. See if they're wise people. See if they're self-aware. I'm not saying just take a poll and see what people think about you. No. But if someone shows you that they're wise, especially if they show you that they're wise and that they love you consistently, perhaps listen to what they have to say to you. Get curious about yourself. Is this an old belief? Is this an underlying message? Is it an old tape playing? Do I accept it? Do I really believe it? Or do I know that it's time to change it? Gosh, that's an old tape. Those of you who are old as me know what a tape is. Gosh, that's an old recording. Playing in my mind. Am I still playing that? My father's been dead for 14 years. Why am I still playing his voice? Why would I do that, right? Unless it's telling me, atta girl, I can play that tape all I want. Or is this something I got from way earlier than that? Some fundamental belief that I learned to hold as a child that I never quite let go of. Curious about yourself, the underlying messages, the old tapes. Because I don't believe we're just here to get our questions answered. I believe we're here to get our answers questioned. And if you have somebody in your life who will take what you think is a sacred cow and say, well, tell me more about that. Well, I just believe it because I have always believed it. There you go. Question those sacred cows. Jesus said in Matthew, do not think I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. Now that quote is often used by people who want to perpetrate violence on other people. It's okay to go to war because Jesus had a sword. No. What he was saying is, I didn't come to make you feel comfortable and complacent, continuing to do the thing you've always done. I came here to cut through the bull so that you can see yourself clear to something different. And the something different is love. And what needs to be cut through is anything that's tying you to the idea that not love in any situation is called for or acceptable. That's the sword. Can you think of Jesus with a sword cutting through all those old tapes? Playing in your head, it's like, no, that one just doesn't work anymore. I don't want to listen to that anymore. That's not who I am. So we come we use our curiosity on ourselves to become self-aware. That might be the most important thing you ever do on the spiritual path. And in this day and age, with all of the stuff that's going on in the world, please, please, please use your curiosity about other people, because I am going to bet that some of us have our minds already made up about who someone is based upon one or two facts we know about them. Based upon what flag they fly outside their house, based upon a bumper sticker on their car, based upon who they voted for, based upon how they look. I have a friend that looks like a good old boy, and he's very, very liberal, but when he goes places, when he goes to buy beer, people come up to him and assume that he's like a redneck bigot, and they start him into conversations about, those brown people and blah, blah, blah. And he has to stand up and say, whoa, I don't know who you think I am, but that's not who I am. How many rednecks are you overlooking because they look like that, but they're actually not that? And how many people who are actually that do you know enough about to be able to judge them? Because they didn't wake up one morning thinking that. They were carefully taught that. They were carefully taught that. That is an old tape that is playing for them. And some deep, deep wound inside of them is making them keep that tape alive. So if you don't have any context about somebody, you can't really make a judgment. You can make a judgment of behavior. That's not okay, and I'm going to stand up. When those words are spoken, I'm standing in my truth and saying what's true here. But that's the saying no while keeping your heart open. I can say no, this language is not acceptable to me. And I love you, brother. Not, this language is not acceptable to me, so get out of here. And I'll judge you for the rest of your life. But this language is not acceptable. I love you, brother. That's the only way change will ever happen. Ever, 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 ever. Hurt people hurt people. Rabbi Yehuda Berg says, this is how pain patterns get passed on generation after generation after generation. He says, break that chain today. Break that chain. Yeah, we're all hurt people. Become aware of your own hurt so that you don't have to pass it on to the next guy. Replace it with something else. And the beautiful nun Mary Lou Carnacki says, engrave this upon your heart. There isn't anyone you couldn't love once you've heard their story. There isn't anyone you couldn't love once you've heard their story. And we don't want to hear their story because it feels more comfortable to just keep our hearts closed. And it takes curiosity to hear their story. Curiosity gives us some context. It makes us let go of our righteousness, of our cherished assumptions. It puts us in beginner's mind and creates an open space, a living environment where both souls have room to grow. Oh, did you know your soul had room to grow too? When you're judging this guy for being who he is? How can you love him in such a way, even standing up against what it is that he's saying? How can you love him and yourself in such a way that there's an environment that is fetid for both, that is fecund, that's the word I'm looking at, that is fecund for both souls to grow, that is well fertilized, that is greening? How can we do that? How can we become an environment in which it is safe for others to grow? Not by condemning them, I can tell you that. How do you make an environment that's safe for you to grow? Not by blaming yourself and condemning yourself. I can tell you that. But some curiosity. I've used this story in here before, so those of you who've heard it, just sort of go rerun and tune out for a minute, but I think it's an important story. I was on a women's march when I was a fairly new minister, and I had my multi-labeled stole on. I wore it to the march. And my husband was wearing his resist t-shirt. And I had all my religious symbols, and we were marching, and we got about 2 blocks into the march, and there were these men at the side of the road carrying signs and screaming at the crowd as we walked by. And I told Bob, oh, just a minute. And he went, oh, God. because he knows how this goes. I walked off the parade march and I walked to the first guy who was carrying a sign and I said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm very interested in why you're here." And I said, "I know why I'm here, but I'm interested in why you're here." And he just screamed at me and said, "I don't have to talk to you. Get out of my face. Go away." I said, "You're right. You don't have to talk to me. I respectfully leave you. Blessings on you." And then I walked to the next guy and said, "Would you be willing to tell me? I'm willing to tell you why I'm here. And I'm truly curious. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm truly curious as to why you're here." And he started to tell me the story about how he felt the previous administration had done things that harmed his family, had put in policies that harmed his family, and a lot of stuff that I heard there was a guy who this happened to, maybe, a lot of that kind of stuff too. And I, instead of arguing with him, just listened and said, "That's painful. I can hear that you're carrying a lot of pain around that. I'm so sorry that happened to your family. I'm sorry that happened to your friend. I'm sorry that happened." And I said, "Can I tell you a story about somebody who was affected positively by the same law?" And talked about somebody who had never been able to have insurance and was now having insurance for the very first time in their lives, even though they had worked 2 jobs their whole life long. That this makes all the difference to her. It's transformed her life. And he kind of, And we talked for 30 minutes. The march was over. But at the end of it, we both had tears in our eyes. And I said, "Are you a hugger?" He said, "I'll give you a hug." He gave me a hug. And he said, "You've given me a lot to think about." And I said, "You've given me a lot to think about." And folks, that was curiosity. Because when I said, "I'm going to go talk to those guys," the first thing that happened in me was, whoosh. I'm going to go tell them. I'm going to go argue. I'm going to go, I had the whoosh. And I knew, thank God I was just out of seminary. I was fresh. And I knew, this is not the way. Love is the only way. Always, only, ever the only way. Love is the only way. And so I chose to approach with love. And the way that love played out was in genuine curiosity, open-ended questions, not, "I'm going to trap you so I can prove that you're wrong." Saying, "I'm curious," and leading somebody into a verbal trap is not curiosity, right? That's lawyering up, basically. So when you are faced with an enemy, whether outside yourself or inside yourself, that part of yourself you're ashamed of, that part of yourself that you're blaming, resist the urge to pigeonhole that or vilify it or run from it. Face the person, face the issue with openness, with kindness, with an assumption of good intent. What if you assumed that actually their intentions were good? They're just going about them in a really different way. The Dalai Lama says we are all basically the same human beings who seek happiness and try to avoid suffering. It all comes down to a difference of opinion on how to accomplish that. And everybody else in the world thinks they're as right as you think you are. What if they were? What if you were wrong about something? What would that be like if you could meet on this field that Rumi talks about? Beyond right doing and wrong doing, there's a field. I will meet you there. When we lie down on that, when our souls lie down on that green grass, language ceases to have meaning. Even the words each other don't make any sense. Because the idea is that we are one. So I invite you this week and for the rest of your life, and y'all, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm going through some really, really hard stuff. Some of my cherished notions, some of the things that have been assumptions for me for a long time about how I was going to be secure and how my life was going to be okay, even in the wake of the death of my husband, are being snatched away one by one. And I'm scared. I'm very afraid. And I know I'm only losing the illusion that I ever had any security in the first place. I'm not actually losing my security. It was never real. I'm losing the illusion, but God, I love my illusions. Don't you love your illusions? And so I'm having to let go and let go and let go and practice curiosity. What is it that I can learn from this? Not why did this happen so that I could learn. I don't think the world works like that. But this is happening. What can I learn? What can I take from it? How can I help? How can I apply it to my dharma? Because my dharma is to be here and to make music and to speak words to help people if I possibly can. So how can I take that and apply it to my dharma? I need my curiosity. How will this turn out? I have no idea. There's much for me to learn. I need to pay attention. And guess what? It's not on my timing. It's God's timing, and I have to be patient. Don't want to be patient, but I have to be. So I'm going to invite you, no matter what situation you're in, to use your curiosity when you listen. When you ask the question and then listen to the answer, you open your heart to compassion for self and other. And in that place, we commune for a moment with another soul rather than argue for a moment with another human being, an opposing personality. And if you practice that enough, you begin to see other souls wherever you go instead of other personalities that disagree with you. Or that's the idea. That's my goal. Thank you. So we'll take that idea into a brief meditation. Take a deep breath. And as you try to just quiet your mind, see what floats up. If it's, that Melinda, she's gone too far this time. Or, I don't know about that. Or, okay, I'll get curious about these people, but not about that guy. Whatever it is, it's okay. Or if there's a tender place that's open in you right now that's ready for you to gently ask the question, what information do you have for me? And then simply to gently listen, not to try to lead it down a path, not to ask it a question that you're trying to trip it up. A question like, what's the payoff I'm getting by continuing to hold this belief? It may take you a while to tease that out and understand it. What is the payoff? The payoff might be I get approval from my friends who think the same thing. The payoff might be, I don't have to change something that might be hard to change. Or it might be more subtle than that. The payoff could be, I get to continue thinking about myself the way I always have. And it's too difficult to change now because I'm too old. I'm too far gone. Might as well go with what I know. Or any one of an infinite number of other possible answers. And there's no blame. We're all getting a payoff for something. But simply by asking the questions, we open our hearts to a more tender place. And in that tender place, we can welcome ourselves, our tender selves, with love. I may not know the answer to this question, or I may know and not want to know because it's painful, but what I can do is prepare a place of love for that answer to eventually land if I'm willing to keep asking the question. I'm willing to, if I don't know the context of another person's behavior, I'm willing to believe that there is one that I don't know about that is guiding them into doing whatever it is that they're doing that I so deeply disapprove of. Not saying it makes the behavior right, but I'm saying the behavior will never change because of shame or opposition or enmity or hatred. Behavior only ever changes because it touches love, and love transforms it as only love can do. And so a good, curious question, regardless of the situation I'm in, a good, curious question could be, how is it mine to bring love to this situation? We're all equally responsible, but I can't make anybody else bring love. How can I bring my love? Whether it's to bring my love for myself to bear on my own self-criticism. Am I brave enough to do that? Am I brave enough to cut myself a break and allow something different? A more rich environment for something new to grow. Am I willing to give my sister a break and stop arguing the same argument we've been having for 40 years? Am I willing to come at her with not an agenda, but just love? Am I willing to watch the news knowing that there's very likely very little that I can do to change any of this? But what I can do is notice the way that my enmity and anger and hatred changes me. And ask myself, is there a different way? Can I allow myself to keep my heart open and bring my love to this situation? Not loving what they do, but understanding that they are expressions of the one God, just as I am, facing their own pain and their own fear and their own history. Can I make a space in my own heart? Whether they ever grow or not, when I make that space, I will grow. And when I grow, the next person I meet will meet someone with a much more open heart, and perhaps they will respond to me in a different way. Maybe the environment I have made for something to grow has now widened to include more people, more ideas, more possibilities, more of myself as I choose to find myself acceptable and lovable. And the beauty about curiosity is that I don't have to know the answer. I only have to know the question and be willing to hang out there. Is there more love that can be brought? Is there a way that I can express my love more fully? Is it possible that I am safe in this circumstance and I can actually allow my defenses to come down? Can I put down my sword and see how the other person relaxes when standing in front of someone who is not holding a sword? Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Lying down in that green grass,
Language seems to lose its meaning, even the words, each other. Thank you, God, that we are one. Amen.